Let's talk about a simple approach on how to think about building software with coding agents. If you're just starting, here's what usually happens. You have an idea for an application or software. You use a coding agent to build it. It will probably create hundreds of files, usually all at once, based on a very complex architecture. And the result, most of the time, it fails. Then you learn about something called specs-driven development. Now, in this case, you provide your idea to the same coding agent, but the coding agent is going to plan everything, build up features, come up with specifications, and then it does its own research, create tasks for itself, implements those, tests those. And normally this approach works relatively better. However, in the process, as a software developer or vibe coder, you don't really learn much. So here is what I recommend for new software developers or vibe coders. This is what I'm calling vibe planning. And in here, you should think of the LLM or coding agent as a collaborator or partner, rather than a software engineer that you just offload tasks to. First, you brainstorm your idea with a coding agent. This coding agent is going to be different than the one that you're going to use for final implementation. But the most important thing is that ask for feedback. Ask the model to ask you clarifying questions. That is extremely helpful, especially for your own learning. Use divide and conquer. So rather than planning the whole application, divide it into atomic parts and plan those atomic parts. So let's say if you have backend integration with front end, there are certain APIs, you want to divide them into different features or phases that the coding agent will plan separately while considering the big picture. And then you pick one feature at a time. You plan that, use another coding agent, which is separate from the planning agent, to implement that feature. You test it, verify it using the initial coding agent that created the plan, and you iterate this whole process. This will ensure there are no regressions in performance, or it's not going to potentially touch implementations that are already working. You can follow this workflow in almost any coding agent, or you can use specialized tools like Traycer to help you build this workflow without any hassle. This lets you build plans for each feature, then use independent agents like Claude or Copilot to do the actual implementation, and let Traycer verify the implementation. In fact, it's just a VS Code extension that you can install inside your coding agent. I personally really like their workflow, and I'm actually happy that they are making this video possible through their sponsorship. Now, the process I'm about to show you is possible inside any coding agent, but Traycer makes it a lot more smooth and effortless. Now, you will need to install this extension in VS Code or the choice of your own IDE, and then you need to sign up and can get started with this for free. But let me show you a practical example of how you would use a workflow. Okay. Here's the Traycer extension within VS Code. There are two options. You can chat with the AI to clarify the intent and then break it down into manageable tasks. And the second option is to create a detailed file level plan, refine it with AI, and then send it to the agent for execution. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start with the phases. I want to have a conversation with the agent to help me build a plan. And that's what I usually do. So for example, I want to create a web app that is going to be using HTML for the front end. For the back end, I want to use Google's Nano Banana image model to generate images based on the user prompt. The user will provide a text prompt. The web app is supposed to generate 4 images. The user should be able to select one of them, then subsequently pass this new image along with the text prompt to keep generating. I want to use the REST API, so I don't want to use any SDK. look up the documentation for Nano Banana Google model with REST API. Okay, by the way, this was real-time transcription. I'm working on a transcription app, which is extremely fast. So we're going to send this in, and let's have a conversation with the agent to come up with a plan. Right now, it's actually doing Google search to look for Google's Nano Banana API endpoint. And this is one of the best features I like within Traycer. Unlike some of the other agentic systems, it has the ability to do web search, and it decides to use that tool whenever it's planning. Okay, so it found Gemini 2.5 Flash image, which is nicknamed Nano Banana. Then it asks us about the API key. It's going to use Node.js. It's making recommendations. So it says you mentioned HTML for the front end, but what backend technology we would like to use. So options are Node.js, Python. I am comfortable with Python. So we're going to say Python, and then image generation count. So this is going to be 4 variation in one API call, or make 4 separate calls. So let's clarify these. For backend, use Python, and for generation of multiple images, use the candidate count if that works. And for storage, we can store it temporarily in the memory. Okay, we're going to send this in. Okay, so it came up with a detailed plan. If you click on it, you can see that it has multiple different phases. So we can generate plan for each of the phases. It completed a detailed plan with all the requirements. Now, interestingly, Traycer actually comes up with an implementation plan, and that implementation plan is up to a single file. So here are the different files that it suggests to create and what is supposed to be in each of those files. At the moment, the project is empty. Now, if we are happy with this plan, then you can either execute this within Copilot, Traycer, or you can pass it on to Claude Code. So we're going to execute this within Claude Code once we agree on the implementation plan. And here you can actually see that Traycer keeps track of the things. So it says, do you want to verify what Claude Code has done? We can go to the verification step. And here, Traycer is able to verify the implementation from Claude Code. Okay, once the backend is implemented, now we can go to Gemini REST API client. Again, we can go step by step and implement every phase. In this phase, it wants to implement a few more Python files. It also is showing us what exactly the REST API is supposed to look like. What are going to be the different parameters? What are the expected output? So extremely detailed. And this is exactly what you want to do. Now we're going to pass it on to Claude Code to execute this. And after that, we're going to test the backend functionality to ensure everything is working. I tend to do incremental testing. That way you can keep track of the progress the agent is making, and also you can test different components. Now, in order to test the API endpoints, we'll need to provide our Gemini API key, and it also added a link to Google AI Studio, which is pretty neat. Okay, so here it seems like it found an issue with the implementation. We're going to fix everything. So it provides the context of what exactly the fix needs to be. Once that feature was implemented, I asked Claude to run a test to see whether the API endpoint works or not. It also found out a small bug, but seems like everything is working at the moment, right? So this is great. Now we can build on top of this. So we're going to go to the next stage. So it completed another plan for the next step. We're going to execute everything in Claude Code. Again, it opens yet another terminal, but in every case, it provides Claude Code with enough context that it actually knows what project it's working on. Okay, so we just ran the final step. Seems like it didn't find any regressions, which is pretty great, right? And as you can see, we're simply building up one step at a time. And Traycer helps us keep everything in check. Now, the moment of truth. So there were a couple of issues. For example, that candidate count didn't work. So we are now making 4 separate API calls instead of using that. But let's run this and let's see what the output we're going to get. Okay, so here's what the app looks like. It seems like there's a text button or place to provide a prompt. Then we can generate an image. Also, there is iterate with selected image. So I think when it generates images, we'll be able to iterate, hopefully. So let's see, create an image of a cat on a skateboard on a beach. And there is a sunset scene behind the cat. Okay, so not the best of prompts, but let's send this. Now it's going to be making 4 different API calls, and the Nano Banana API calls do take some time. So I'm going to come back when it generates the images. Okay, so pretty cool, right? So we have multiple different images. Now you will also see this text. Nano Banana actually is a multimodal model, so it generates images along with text. Okay, so all of them look pretty cute, but I'm going to select this one. And let's see if the subsequent request is going to work. Put a hat on the cat while it's drinking orange juice on a sofa watching TV. All right, so we're going to send this one now, and let's wait. Okay, so we get 4 more cats. This cat definitely looks very similar to the original one. So here's the one that we selected, although I think it did lose that scarf over there. But overall, the composition is very similar. So pretty good job. And if you wanted to add another feature, we could just add a new phase. We'll describe the phase, and then we can use Traycer to help us implement that. So overall, Traycer is an extremely powerful tool that can help you do the planning for your vibe coding applications. And I personally really like this specs-driven development along with verification that Traycer provides. You can get started with Traycer for absolutely free. You get 7-day pro trial. Link is going to be in the video description. Now, the goal of this video was not only to show you a tool, but actually walk you through a complete technique. And the goal is going to be to break down your project into manageable tasks, whether you are doing vibe coding or development yourself, and then implement those tasks by planning it, and you are going to provide a much better context to your coding model. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.